state will not save you, never. Friedman knew this deeply. Friedman constantly warned with urgency. Most people believe in blatant lies. Most think that the government will genuinely care. Friedman vehemently emphasized, government doesn't take care of you. Government doesn't really save. Government completely destroys it. Friedman spent his entire life proving every government promise is pure illusion. All promised security is completely false. All security offered is a sophisticated trap. Friedman said, you are absolutely alone. You need to genuinely take care of yourself. You need to truly save yourself. Government won't do that. Never, never. Friedman knew that understanding uncomfortable truths is absolutely essential, because truth sets you free completely, because truth genuinely saves you, because truth allows you to act rationally. Milton Friedman watched governments promise financial security. I watched citizens believe shamelessly. He watched the entire population suffer silently. Friedman constantly asked himself, why? Why do people believe obvious lies? Friedman answered definitively, because hope completely defeats reason, because illusion comforts more than reality, because the truth is deeply frightening. Friedman knew that most absolutely prefer illusion, because confronting reality hurts terribly, because responsibility is extremely difficult, because action is necessary and scary. Friedman urgently emphasized, you need to wake up now, because illusion kills slowly, because reality genuinely saves, because truth frees completely. Friedman observed the pattern repeating itself infinitely. Government promises, people believe. People suffer. Government re-elects. Cycle continues forever. What is the number one illusion that the government shamelessly promises? Friedman said, financial security in old age. Government shamelessly promises you will be financially secure. Government fallaciously promises you will be taken care of with dignity. Friedman knew the uncomfortable truth. Government lies through its teeth. Because the pension system is clearly a pyramid. Because new money constantly finances old. Because the system will inevitably break. Friedman warned urgently, you who contribute today will suffer terribly, because the system will not have money legitimately, because the government honestly doesn't have money, because promise is pure illusion altogether. Friedman knew the generation that enters now will fail, because math is cruel, because demographics change, because the system is unsustainable. What is the number two illusion that government offers? Friedman said. Universally guaranteed health. Government shamelessly promises medicine will be free. Government falsely promises universal access will be guaranteed. Friedman knew the bitter truth. The promise is completely false. Because the system becomes saturated quickly, because quality progressively declines, because you suffer terribly. Friedman warned, state medicine doesn't really work, because there is constantly a lack of money, because there is obviously a lack of incentive, because system breaks down regularly. Friedman knew those who depend on public health will die waiting, because the queue is infinite, because resources are scarce, because the system fails. What is the number three illusion that government sells? Friedman said, education for all guaranteed. Government naively promises education will be universal and free. Government falsely promises opportunity will be equal for everyone. Friedman knew state education is pure indoctrination, because it teaches systematic dependence, because it teaches that government saves, because it teaches profound illusion. Friedman warned public education fails children terribly, because it doesn't teach uncomfortable truth, because it doesn't teach personal responsibility, because it doesn't teach genuine freedom. Friedman knew his son who studies in the public system will suffer, because you will learn wrong, because it will be shaped for dependency, because you will be lost. What is the number 4 illusion that government offers? Friedman said, completely protected unemployment. Government falsely promises you will have guaranteed aid. Government promises lies, you will be taken care of with dignity. Friedman knew the cruel truth. Aid kills personal dignity, because it completely takes away incentive, because it creates chronic dependence, because it perpetuates generational poverty. Friedman warned, people who depend on aid do not progress because they don't genuinely work, because they don't really grow, because they are trapped forever. Friedman knew help is a mental trap, because it creates illusion, because it creates a cycle, because it creates slavery. Why does the government promise but deliberately never deliver? Friedman explained, because government wants absolute political power, because the government wants total control over the population, because the government wants guaranteed votes for perpetual re-election. Friedman knew promises get you icily, because hope completely defeats reason, because people naively believe in lies, because people vote hopefully for change. Friedman warned, after the election, promises magically disappear completely, because the government was legitimately elected with power, because you no longer need to honestly please anyone, because truth doesn't matter when safely elected. Friedman knew government creates a deliberate and calculated cycle. Promises during campaign, win an election with hope, governs systematically poorly, promise again in the next election. People believe again naively. Cycle continues infinitely without stopping. What is the historical pattern that repeats itself? Friedman studied political history. Friedman saw an invariable pattern. Government always promises security. People suffer without security. Government promises again. People wait again. Friedman warned, you are caught in a trap because each promise is worse than the last. Because dependence increases progressively. Because freedom is constantly decreasing. Friedman knew pattern is purposeful, not accidental. Because government expands when it fails. Because failure justifies expansion. Because you get stuck more. Friedman emphasized recognize pattern. Because standards kill freedom. Because standards hold you back. Because pattern is intentional. Why can't the government keep promises, even if it wanted to? Friedman said, because government is fundamentally inefficient. Because government is extremely bureaucratic. Because the government has no real incentives. Friedman knew government does not need to truly profit. Because the government does not legitimately fail due to lack of money. Because government always gets money easily. Because the government constantly prints money. Friedman warned, inefficiency is by deliberate design. Because government likes to be inefficient. Because inefficiency generates more government. Because more government generates more government power. Friedman knew the truth. Government grows when it fails, because failure justifies expansion. Because failure needs a solution. Because the solution is more government. How does government create a cycle of purposeful and systematic dependency? Friedman explained meticulously. Government deliberately creates problems on purpose. People suffer from the problem created. Government offers misleading and false solution. Solution offered creates new, much bigger problem. People suffer more than before. Government offers expanded and larger solution. Cycle expands infinitely without stopping. Friedman knew, you are being deliberately, systematically manipulated, because the government intentionally creates a calculated problem, because the government is known to offer a false solution, because a false solution makes the real situation worse, because you become progressively more dependent. Friedman warned, recognize the manipulative cycle. Because cycle is intentional, not accidental. Because cycle kills your genuine freedom. Because a cycle is a sophisticated, designed trap. Why should you trust yourself completely and never believe in government? Friedman strongly emphasized, because you have genuine personal incentives, because you truly want to survive, because you genuinely want to prosper. Friedman knew incentives are true ultimate strength, because incentives always completely motivate, because incentives always inevitably work. Friedman warned, government does not have its personal incentives. Because government does not suffer from its own failure. Because the government continues to get paid even when it fails completely. Because government genuinely doesn't care about your outcome. Friedman knew you are completely responsible for yourself. Because absolutely no one else is. Because the government will not truly help. Because you need to act now, immediately. Friedman emphasized self-confidence is true freedom. Because you control your destiny. Because you have genuine power. Because you can thrive. What is the hidden and real cost of depending on government? Friedman warned, cost is your complete freedom. Because dependence creates mental slavery. Because you obey government constantly. Because you lose genuine autonomy. Friedman knew dependence kills personal dignity. Because you are powerless. Because you are vulnerable. Because you get stuck mentally. Friedman emphasized, freedom is more important than false security. Because without freedom you are not human. Because without freedom you are a slave. Because without freedom you are spiritually dead. Why does the government create programs that deliberately make the situation worse? Friedman explained, because the program creates demand for the program. Demand creates justification for more program. More program creates more dependency. Cycle never truly stops. Friedman knew, government loves this perfect cycle, because cycle justifies governmental existence. Because the cycle constantly expands government. Because cycle increases government power infinitely. Friedman warned, you are being deliberately manipulated. Because the government intentionally creates problems. Because the government offers a false solution. Because the solution makes everything worse. Friedman knew a system is a sophisticated trap. Because it seems to help. Because it really hurts. Because you get stuck. What is the brutal truth about Social Security? Friedman urgently warned, Social Security is a financial pyramid. Because new money finances old payment, because the system has been unsustainable since its creation. Friedman knew, if you enter now, you are guaranteed to lose, because the system will not have money, because young people won't support old people, because the system is mathematically doomed. Friedman emphasized, you can't count on Social Security, because the system will fail, because you will suffer when you fail, because you need to protect yourself right now. Friedman warned, start saving privately, now. Because government won't save you, because you need to be self-reliant, because time is running out. What is the brutally honest truth about public health? Friedman warned, public health is systemically inefficient, because there is constantly a lack of money, because there is a complete lack of incentive, because the system fails regularly. Friedman knew, those who depend on public health will suffer terribly, because the queue is truly infinite, because the quality is terrible, because you might die waiting. Friedman emphasized, you need to have private health care, because private health care works, because private health care is efficient, because private health care saves you. Friedman warned, invest in private health care now, because your life depends on it, because government won't save you, because you are responsible. What is the uncomfortable truth about public education? Friedman warned, public education fails completely, because it really teaches little, because it doctrines very excessively, because it prepares the worst possible. Friedman knew his son who goes to public school will suffer because you will learn wrong, because you will be indoctrinated, because you will be prepared for dependence. Friedman emphasized, you need to educate your child personally, because public education doesn't work, because you are responsible for education, because your child depends on you. Friedman warned, invest in private education, because private education works, because private education sets you free, because private education is a better investment. What is the truth about unemployment benefit that the government hides? Friedman warned, aid kills the desire to work, because it completely takes away incentive, because people stop looking for work, because a person becomes permanently dependent. Friedman knew, a person being helped is trapped forever, because it doesn't genuinely grow, because it doesn't really get better, because it doesn't really progress. Friedman emphasized, temporary aid kills permanently, because it creates a dependent mentality, because it creates a habit of dependence, because it creates eternal slavery. Friedman warned, it is better to be poor working than rich on aid, because work frees you, because dependence enslaves you, because you need work. Why should you trust yourself and not the government? Friedman emphasized, because you have incentives, because you want to survive, because you want to prosper. Friedman knew incentives are strength, because incentives motivate, because incentives work. Friedman warned, government does not have its incentives, because government does not suffer from failure, because the government continues to get paid, because the government doesn't care about the result. What is the cost of depending on government? Friedman warned, cost is your freedom, because dependence creates slavery, because you obey the government, because you lose autonomy. Friedman knew dependence kills dignity, because you are powerless, because you are vulnerable, because you get stuck. Friedman emphasized, freedom is more important than security, because without freedom you are not human, because without freedom you are a slave, because without freedom you died. Why does the government create programs that make the situation worse? Friedman explained, because programs create demand. Demand creates more program. More program creates more dependency. Cycle never stops, Friedman knew. Government loves cycles, because cycle justifies government, because cycle expands government, because cycle increases government power. Friedman warned, you are being manipulated, because government creates problems, because government offers a solution, because solution creates new problem. What is the truth about Social Security? Friedman warned, Social Security is a pyramid, because new money finances old, because the system will break. Friedman knew whoever enters now will lose, because the system will not have money, because young people won't support old people, because the system is unsustainable. Friedman emphasized you can't count on Social Security, because the system will fail, because you will suffer, because you need to protect yourself now. What is the truth about public health? Friedman warned, public health is inefficient, because there is no money, because there is a lack of incentive, because the system fails. Friedman knew those who depend on public health will suffer, because the queue is long, because quality is bad, because you might die waiting. Friedman emphasized, you need to have private health care, because private health care works, because private health care is efficient, because private health care saves you. What is the truth about public education? Friedman warned, public education fails, because it teaches little, because it teaches a lot, because it prepares worse. Friedman knew his son who goes to public school will suffer, because you will learn wrong, because you will be indoctrinated, because you will be prepared for dependence. Friedman emphasized, you need to educate your child, because public education doesn't work, because you are responsible, because your child depends on you. What is the truth about unemployment benefit? Friedman warned, aid kills will, because it takes away incentive, because people don't look for work, because people become dependent. Friedman knew, person in aid gets trapped, because it doesn't grow, because it doesn't get better, because it doesn't progress. Friedman emphasized, temporary aid kills permanently, because it creates mentality, because it creates a habit, because it creates eternal dependence. Why doesn't the government that takes your money take care of you? Friedman explained, because the government that takes money is not your friend, because the government that controls money controls you, because the government that gives money back offers illusion. Friedman knew money you get back is less you paid, because the government takes commissions, because the government uses your money, because you get crumbs. Friedman warned, you are being robbed slowly, because the government takes a lot, because the government returns little, because you become poor. What is the alternative to government? Friedman emphasized, yourself, because you are responsible, because you are capable, because you can take care of yourself. Friedman knew, you are more efficient than government, because you have incentives, because you want to survive, because you will do it right. Friedman warned, you can save, because you can invest, because you can thrive. Friedman knew you can do it without government. If you want, if you try, if you act. How do you build your own security without government? Friedman emphasized saving, because savings are real security. Because the money saved is yours, because money invested grows. Friedman knew you who save are free, because you don't depend on the government, because you can live off your savings, because you are self-sufficient. Friedman warned, start saving now, because the sooner the better, because compounding works, because time is your ally. How do you get education without government? Friedman emphasized private education. Because private education works. Because private education teaches truth. Because private education prepares you for reality. Friedman knew private education is better. Because there are incentives. Because it has quality. Because it has responsibility. Friedman warned, invest in private education. Because education is the best investment. Because education makes you free. Because education sets you free. How do you take care of your health without government? Friedman emphasized, private health care. Because private healthcare works. Because private healthcare is fast. Because private healthcare saves you. Friedman knew private healthcare costs less. Because it is efficient. Because there are incentives. Because it works. Friedman warned, hire private healthcare. Because private healthcare protects you. Because private healthcare is real. Because private healthcare works. How do you prepare for old age without government? Friedman emphasized investing. Because investment grows. Because compounding works. Because you get rich. Friedman knew, if you invest for old age, it is safe. Because you have savings. Because you have income. Because you are free. Friedman warned, start investing now. Because time is of the essence. Because composition explodes. Because you will be safe. Okay. What do you absolutely need to truly understand right now? Government doesn't really save you. Government systematically deceives you. Government deliberately controls you. Government promises but fails to deliver. Government wants power above all else. Government wants votes for re-election. Government wants to constantly expand. Government doesn't genuinely care about you. Government doesn't really take care of you. Government uses you for its own power. Government is a control machine. Government creates intentional dependency. Government keeps you locked up. Friedman knew all this deeply. Friedman proved this rigorously. Friedman warned about this urgently. A person who believes in government suffers eternally, inescapably. A person who takes care of themselves truly prospers every time. A person who is self-sufficient is genuinely free completely. A dependent person is a permanent mental slave. A person who acts is genuinely powerful. A person who waiting is impotent eternally. Friedman spent his entire life warning with extreme urgency. You are completely responsible for your destiny, because government is not genuinely responsible. You are genuinely capable, because the government is truly not capable. You can prosper permanently, because the government doesn't let it prosper. Friedman emphasized, awaken now immediately completely, because illusion slowly kills silently. Because reality genuinely saves, because action truly liberates eternally. Now you know uncomfortable truth completely. Now you choose your final destination. Do you believe in false government illusion or act in genuine reality? Choice is absolutely yours completely. Friedman knew that the right choice radically changes everything permanently. You need to act now, immediately, without delay. You need to protect yourself now, in this moment. You need to save now without waiting. You need to invest now for the future. You need to educate yourself now honestly. You need to be completely self-reliant now, because time is running out quickly, because government is constantly expanding, because system is gradually failing, because you absolutely need to be prepared. Don't wait any longer for better government. Don't believe in empty political promises. Don't depend on government programs. Don't trust elected politicians. Don't get caught up in government illusion. Be truly free. Be truly, completely responsible. Be capable, completely, genuinely. Be absolutely, truly self-reliant. Genuinely, be your own savior. Because no one else will save you. Because government won't save you. Because you are completely responsible. Because you are genuinely capable. Because you truly can. This is your chance. This is your moment. This is your opportunity. Friedman knew you can do it. Friedman believed in you. Friedman proved true. Now it is your responsibility to act.